You are standing in front of your bathroom mirror, performing the most mundane ritual of the modern world. You've got a plastic toothbrush in your hand, a smear of minty paste on the bristles, and you're looking at your own reflection. You see the person you've chosen to share your life with walking past the doorway in the background. It's a scene of profound, quiet domesticity. You probably think this setup, one person, one partner, one mortgage, is the natural state of being for a human. But as you stare at your own teeth in the glass, specifically those slightly pointed canines, you're looking at a biological paradox. If you were a truly monogamous creature, your body would look entirely different. If you were a truly promiscuous one, your history would be written in a different kind of blood. The person in the mirror is a biological hybrid, a creature designed for a lifestyle that your modern brain would find unrecognizable and perhaps even terrifying. We like to tell ourselves that love is a story of two souls finding each other, but the cold reality of your evolutionary past suggests that your current relationship is actually a hard-won peace treaty in a war that lasted for 2 million years. The mirror is lying to you. When evolutionary biologists want to know how a species actually behaves when no one is watching, they don't look at their social rules, they look at their skeletons. This is because mating systems leave physical scars on a species that take millions of years to heal. Consider the gorilla. A silverback is a massive, 350-pound wall of muscle, nearly twice the size of the females in his troop. This isn't an accident. It is the anatomical signature of a harem system. In a world where one male monopolizes all the females, size isn't just a trait, it's the only thing that matters. If you aren't big enough to beat the other males into submission, you don't get to pass on your genes. This is called sexual dimorphism, and it is the universal tell for polygyny. Now, if you look at a truly monogamous species like the gibbon, the males and females are almost identical in size. There's no point in being a giant brute if you've already got a partner and there's no competition to fight off. So, you look back at your reflection. Human males are, on average, about 15% larger than females. We are taller, we have more upper body muscle, and we have thicker skulls. This is a moderate degree of dimorphism. It tells a very specific story. For most of our history, we were not living in quiet, one-on-one pairs. We were competing. We were fighting for access. But we weren't fighting like gorillas. Something was keeping our size difference in check, preventing us from becoming 400-pound monsters, yet refusing to let us settle into the perfect symmetry of the gibbon. Your ancestors were playing a dangerous game of almost. This ambiguity extends from your bones down to your most private anatomy. If we look at the 2003 research by Drive David Putz, we see that even the depth of the human male voice is a vestige of this ancient competition. It's not designed to attract women, it's designed to intimidate other men. But the most damning evidence isn't in how we look, it's in how we reproduce. In species where females mate with multiple partners in a short window of time, the competition moves from the forest floor into the reproductive tract. This is known as sperm competition. Chimpanzees are the kings of this. Because a female chimp will mate with almost every male in the group, the male who produces the most ammunition is the one who wins. Consequently, chimps have massive testes relative to their body size, about 3 times larger than ours. Gorillas, who have total control over their harems and face zero competition once they've won the top spot, have tiny ones. Humans, once again, are stuck in the middle. Our anatomy suggests that while we weren't as wildly promiscuous as chimps, your female ancestors were absolutely mating with more than one male often enough that it forced a biological arms race. We are built for a level of infidelity that would wreck a modern marriage in an afternoon. This intermediate biology is a haunting reminder that the one-partner rule is a very recent skin that we've stretched over a much more volatile animal. The math of your survival doesn't add up. If you find this biological middle ground confusing, wait until you look at the genetic record, because that's where the real mystery begins. In 2015, a team of researchers led by Monica Carmen conducted a massive study published in the journal Genome Research, looking at the DNA of modern humans to reconstruct our past population sizes. They found something that should make your blood run cold. About 8,000 years ago, something catastrophic happened to the human male. While the female population continued to grow and thrive, the number of men successfully passing on their genes collapsed. The data suggests that for every 17 women who reproduced, only one man did. This wasn't a plague that only killed men, it was a social bottleneck. It means that a tiny elite of powerful men was monopolizing every single woman in their reach, leaving the vast majority of males to live and die without ever leaving a trace of their existence. This wasn't the natural monogamy we see in storybooks. This was a brutal, winner-take-all system that lasted for thousands of years across multiple continents. It suggests that our natural state isn't one partner, it's a state where a few men have everything and the rest have nothing. But the ghost in your DNA is restless. You have to wonder why this system eventually broke. Why aren't we still living in a world of a few emperors and millions of bachelors? The answer lies in the work of Dr. Joseph Henrich, a professor of human evolutionary biology at Harvard. In his seminal paper, The Puzzle of Monogamous Marriage, Henrich argues that monogamy isn't a natural biological drive at all. It's a social technology. It was a trick we invented to keep men from killing each other. Think about the math of that 17-to-1 ratio. When you have a massive population of young, low-status men with no hope of ever having a family or a partner, you have a recipe for total social collapse. These men have nothing to lose. They are more likely to take risks, more likely to be violent, and more likely to overthrow the status quo. Monogamy was the peace treaty that solved this. By enforcing a one-man, one-woman rule, societies effectively leveled the playing field. It gave every man a stake in the future. It reduced the murder rate, lowered the age of marriage, and allowed men to stop competing for wives and start working together to build things like cities, irrigation systems, and armies. Monogamy didn't win because it was more romantic, it won because it made the tribes that practiced it much more stable and much more dangerous to their neighbors. The peace was bought with blood. However, even as these social rules were being carved into stone, our brains were still running on the old software. This is where the work of Dr. David Buss, an evolutionary psychologist at the University of Texas, becomes vital to understanding the person sitting across from you at dinner. Buss has spent decades studying human jealousy, and what he found is that our jealousy triggers are precisely calibrated to the threats of a non-monogamous past. Men and women experience the green-eyed monster differently, and those differences are a map of our ancient fears. Men, cross-culturally, tend to be more distressed by sexual infidelity, the physical act. This is because in an ancestral environment without DNA tests, a man's greatest evolutionary risk was cuckoldry, or spending his life's resources raising another man's child. Women, conversely, tend to be more distressed by emotional infidelity, the threat of their partner falling in love with someone else. This is because a man falling in love with another woman meant he might move his protection and resources to a new family, leaving the first partner and her children to starve. If we were a naturally, purely monogamous species, we wouldn't need such intense, visceral, and gender-specific hardware to guard our partners. We have these feelings because, for a million years, our partners were constantly straying, and those who didn't feel the burning rage of jealousy simply didn't see their children survive. The trap was already set. But if the social technology of monogamy is so beneficial for society, why does it feel so difficult for the individual? To answer that, we have to look at the dark side of our evolutionary journey, specifically the threat of infanticide. This is one of the most chilling theories in evolutionary biology, supported by a 2013 study from University College London led by Dr. Kit Opie. In many primate species, when a new male takes over a group, his first act is to kill all the infants fathered by the previous male. This brings the females back into heat so he can father his own offspring. Opie's research suggests that the primary driver for the evolution of the pair bond, the precursor to monogamy, wasn't love or cooperation. It was a defensive alliance. Males and females stayed together because a present, invested father was the only thing standing between an infant and a murderous rival male. We didn't start holding hands because it felt good. We started holding hands because it was the only way to keep our children from being murdered. Our modern monogamy is built on the foundation of a prehistoric security detail. But the real threat wasn't coming from outside the tribe. As human groups grew larger and more settled, a new pressure emerged that pushed us even further toward the one-partner model: disease. In 2016, Chris Bauch of the University of Waterloo published a study in Nature Communications that used mathematical modeling to show how sexually transmitted infections, STIs, shaped human marriage. In small hunter-gatherer groups, STIs don't really take hold; they die out too quickly. But once humans started living in large agricultural villages, a promiscuous mating system became a death sentence. Chlamydia, syphilis, and gonorrhea would have ripped through a polygynous society, causing infertility and population decline. Groups that enforced monogamy suddenly had a massive health advantage. They were the ones who grew, while the natural, promiscuous groups withered away. Monogamy, in this light, isn't a moral choice. It's a public health mandate that we've been following for 10,000 years. We are the descendants of the people who were the most successful at social distancing their reproductive lives. Because in the game of evolution, being natural is a death sentence. All of this leads to a singular, uncomfortable reveal. For decades, the debate has been whether humans are naturally monogamous or naturally polygamous. But the newest research suggests that we are neither. We are facultatively monogamous. This means we are the only species on Earth that can change its mating system based on the environment. We are biological chameleons. When resources are scarce and life is dangerous, we huddle into intense, protective pairs. When a few men become incredibly wealthy and powerful, we slide back into the 17-to-1 harem math of the Neolithic. When women have their own resources and social safety nets, we move toward a system of serial monogamy, the one partner at a time model that dominates the modern West. We don't have one natural setting. We have a suite of options, and we are currently living in a historical moment that has selected the one-partner option because it is the most efficient way to run a stable, industrial society. We aren't monogamous because our hearts were designed for it. We are monogamous because our civilizations wouldn't work without it. Peace came at a staggering cost. This flexibility is why the modern world feels so confusing. We are living in a culture that demands strict monogamy, while our bodies are still equipped with the voice-pitch intimidation of a harem builder and the sperm competition anatomy of a cautious philanderer. We are carrying the hormones of the grandmother hypothesis, a theory popularized by Kristen Hawkes of the University of Utah, which suggests that humans evolved long lifespans and pair bonds specifically so that grandmothers and fathers could help provision children during the long, slow human childhood. This slow development of the human brain forced us into long-term partnerships. A human infant is so helpless for so long that a single mother in the ancestral environment would have faced nearly impossible odds. The pair bond was an economic necessity before it was a romantic one. We are the only ape that has cooperative breeding, where the father, the grandmother, and the mother all work together. This is the wow fact of our species. Our ability to love one person for 50 years isn't a biological fluke. It's a survival strategy that allowed us to grow the most complex brains in the known universe. Love is the fuel for the most expensive biological computer ever built. But the history of your heart is written in shadows. When we look at the ethnographic record, the standard cross-cultural sample of hundreds of different societies, we see this tension in real time. Roughly 85% of these societies permit polygyny. Most of the world throughout history has said yes to having more than one partner. And yet, even in those societies, the majority of people live in monogamous pairs. Because being a top male with multiple wives is incredibly expensive and exhausting, and being a secondary wife is a constant battle for resources for your children. Monogamy is the low-energy state of human society. It's the baseline we fall back to when the drama of competition becomes too much to bear. Even when we are allowed to have more, we usually choose one, not because we are perfectly faithful, but because we are fundamentally tired. The emotional labor of the human pair bond is so high that most of us simply don't have the bandwidth for anything else. We are monogamous by exhaustion as much as by choice. But the reflection in the glass is still watching. We have to acknowledge the 2010 work of Drive C. Owen Lovejoy, who argues that the transition to monogamy happened much earlier than we thought, nearly 4 million years ago with Ardipithecus. He points to the reduction of the canine teeth as the smoking gun. In primates, big canines are for fighting other males. When our ancestors' canines started to shrink, it meant they were no longer fighting for females. Instead, they were prostitution provisioning. Males started bringing food to specific females to win their favor, and females started choosing the nice guys, who brought the best snacks over the alpha guys, who did the most shouting. If Lovejoy is right, then the person you are looking at in the mirror, with those small, useless canines, is the result of a 4-million-year-old female preference for stability over strength. You are the descendant of the good providers. You are the nice guy who won the evolutionary lottery by bringing home the prehistoric equivalent of a grocery bag instead of a bloody club. And that was the first sign that something was very wrong. We have spent this entire time looking for a single answer, but the reality is that ancient humans didn't have one mating system. They had all of them. They had the brutal harems of the first farmers. They had the loose, shifting partnerships of the hunter-gatherers. They had the defensive pair bonds of the early savanna dwellers. And they had the culturally enforced monogamy of the first city builders. We are the heirs to all of these conflicting impulses. We are the species that can feel a deep, soul-shattering love for one person while simultaneously feeling the biological pull of 1,000 ancestors who survived by being anything but faithful. This internal conflict isn't a defect in your character, it's the definition of being human. We are a one-partner species that is haunted by a many-partner past, living in a one-partner society that is only 10 minutes old in evolutionary time. The real mystery isn't why we sometimes fail at monogamy. The real mystery is how we ever succeeded at it in the first place. It required us to rewrite our biology with our culture. It required us to invent the concept of honor, sin, and legal marriage to suppress the urges that kept us alive for millions of years. It required us to turn our backs on the winner-take-all math of the animal kingdom and try to build something fairer, even if it feels unnatural. We are the only animals that have decided that the unnatural way of doing things isn't good enough. We have taken the raw, chaotic material of our evolutionary history and tried to forge it into something stable. And every time you choose to stay, every time you choose to invest in that one person in the mirror's background, you are performing a miracle of cultural engineering. You are defying the 17-to-1 ghosts of your past. This is a rabbit hole that goes all the way down to the beginning of our genus. It touches on why we have such large brains, why we live so long, and why we are the only ape that can stand to live in a city with millions of strangers without killing each other. It's a story of STIs, infanticide, economic peace treaties, and the slow, 4-million-year shrinking of our teeth. If you want to dive deeper into how these ancient pressures shape the way we think and feel today, there are plenty more of these biological mysteries to uncover. You might find that the natural world is a lot darker and a lot more interesting than you were ever told. If you've ever felt that pull between what you should feel and what you actually feel, it's worth sticking around to find out why. Now, look back at that mirror one last time. Take a good, long look at those small, blunt canine teeth you're brushing. You like to think they're just for chewing, a harmless part of your modern smile. But those teeth are the primary evidence of a 4-million-year-old surrender. They are the white flag your ancestors waved so that you could eventually stand in a quiet, safe room with one partner, instead of fighting for your life in a harem of blood and bone. Those teeth didn't shrink because we became more peaceful, they shrank because we became more calculating. We traded our fangs for the social stability of the pair bond, and we've been pretending it was about true love ever since. But don't be fooled by the minty breath and the soft lighting. You are still that same creature that once saw a 17-to-1 ratio as a goal rather than a tragedy. You are a biological weapon that has been successfully decommissioned by the social technology of marriage. And the moment that technology fails, the moment the social rules vanish, those blunt little teeth will be the only thing left to remind you of what you actually are. You're not just brushing your teeth, you're polishing the gravestone of your own animal nature. Sleep well tonight, knowing that the only thing keeping your world in one piece is a story we all agreed to believe.